So a lot of this crazy
and so-
stuff. So this pocket, these aliens down there, basically just living their lives. He spoke about the reptilians having been here before man and live beneath our feet. There's an entire world beneath our feet that we don't even know about, which leads to hollow earth theory, or at least in part leads to hollow earth theory, which is a pretty interesting theory and one that really intrigues me. In this and in all things, I'm agnostic. I'm never going to say, oh, there's 100%, there's this whole world beneath our feet. I think there could be certain sections underneath our feet that could be populated. I don't buy into this whole scenario, like Agartha, which, let me pull up a few pictures. Agartha being this, the whole earth is hollow. And then at the poles, the North and South Pole, there's an entrance to hollow earth.
Isn't this actually the premise of Iron Sky 2?
I don't know. I've never seen that movie.
It is. So I don't buy into the Agartha.
It's two.
thing.
They've got their own sun. How would that even work? You got your own sun in the middle of our planet. Man, that's a tough one for me to swallow.
So I'm going to say no because gravity. The planet has a molten iron core that's incredibly hot. It's molten iron mostly from what I understand, which is how the planet gets its gravity. You need a lot of mass to create gravity. And if the center of the earth is hollow and there's a sun in there, like pterodactyls flying and shit, then we don't have the gravity. And we would
pterodactyls is one thing.
Off the planet.
Giants, pterodactyls, aliens, reptilians.
Gumby.
Think about it. If it were hollow, there's a hell of a lot more area there than we have on the surface. There'd be all kinds of shit.
What's that going to do to real estate prices? That's why they're not telling us. When we find out that there's a lot more land available, land's going to get cheap and people are going to lose money. And that is why we're not being told. When it comes to hollow earth theory, I am not a believer in hollow earth. However, around the world, there are underground cities. Some of them have been built, like in China, there's been underground cities built. And in the United States, there's talk of underground cities. We know for a fact that we have deep underground military bases. We have Cheyenne
Those are
Mountain,
real, by the way. Bases.
Cheyenne Mountain is definitely a real underground base. It's drilled into a mountain. You have Raven Rock in Pennsylvania comes to mind. And it's just two. There's a bunch of them. I don't know how many specifically. Phil gave a number. I don't know how many are actually.
I know that he said that there was 130 alien bases. 129 of which were
supposedly the number worldwide is over 1,000, that over 100 in the United States. He also said that he worked on 13 or 17 of them. But there are underground cities. Not all of them have an easy explanation because not all of them are cities that we know have been built in modern or even in the recent past. Derinkuyu in Turkey they discovered it not horribly long ago, and it is in fact an entire underground city that is abandoned. And in fact, in Turkey, there are a bunch of these underground cities that are just like abandoned cities, and like you could tell they have granaries and workspaces and living quarters, and these are underground cities. And this is stuff that you can look up. So if hollow earth theory is appealing to you and you want to look this up, certainly feel free to look it up, and feel free to correct me in the comments if I'm making a mistake here, but there's definitely something happening there. I think there really is something happening.
We're allowing
alien bases.
You can do that.
I don't know. Were they alien bases? I don't know. They seem to be fit for human habitation. Let's put it that way. Do I think there's something going on there? Oh, absolutely. Do I think that our military has underground military bases? Yes. Do I think that we have them on the scale that Phil was talking about? I think we're overstating the amount of them by quite a lot. Remember that to do one of these big projects, you're talking about a lot of construction.
This is the problem that I have about some of these stories is when the person is front and center and plays a major role in it. That makes me take a step back and go, okay, come on now. Are you really that important there, guy? So, come on.
Let's talk about how important Bill is for just a minute. I feel like it's time, Dan. I feel like it's time to drop the hammer. Phil's born in 1947. Most Americans graduate high school at 18. I'm going to give Phil the benefit of the doubt and say that he was in all the AP classes and he graduated at the tender age of
Tender.
16. And that puts him leaving school in what, 1963, correct?
Yeah, if you according to that.
According to numbers. So then he would then go on to a 4-year college to get his degree in structural engineering, which he did in fact get. I forget what school he went to, but yeah, they had him documented, and he got an engineering degree. And so let's say that again, Phil is just the smartest guy in the world, and he does a 4-year engineering degree in 3 years. Okay, so now we're up to 1966. Phil's statement is, and this is Phil's statement in the video, this is from him directly, is that he worked for this company doing this for 17 years. Okay, so that would put him, if he went directly from college in 1966, that puts him working until 1983. And this happened in 1976. Oh, 79. Sorry, 1979. Okay, so he worked for 4 years after the Dulce War, according to his math. The problem with this, Phil's ex-wife claims that he applied for disability benefits and started receiving them in 1981. You have the incident in 1979, and he applies for and begins receiving disability benefits in 1981. His claim of 17 years, all right, sorry, I've checked the numbers.
Something's not adding up here, Phil.
Oh, something's fucky, Phil. Okay. Phil doesn't reveal all the things about himself. It turns out that Phil was actually committed to a mental institution, spent about 6 months in there, where he was diagnosed with being mildly schizophrenic. The reports from the doctors and nurses at said institution in Oregon, they said that when Phil wanted attention, he would self-harm, that he self-amputated several fingers and a thumb on his hand while he was in the mental institution.
There is a record of that.
So
now if you were to follow
whether that happened or not.
Here's my thing. If you want to know if he's full of shit, follow the medical records. You don't get a scar that's that size on his chest and stomach that looks like a bypass scar. You don't get one of those without there being a paper trail.
We don't have any records of Phil having bypass surgery. However, there is FBI reports. One of Phil's friends calls the FBI on old Philium. He says, hey, Phil's bragging to me that he has nuclear material. Yeah. So the FBI,
I know where you're headed with this. Yeah.
Raid Phil's home. What do they find in Phil's home? They find 300 pounds of uranium-containing ore, raw uranium ore, and he's storing it under his bed.
Insane.
He's sleeping. He's sleeping on top of 300 pounds of radioactive ore. He gives it to him. He says, "Oh, you guys can just take it." He says, "Well, Phil, where the hell did you get this?" And Phil's answer is, "Oh, I bought it from this guy I met at the bar."
Yeah, black market.
So they then look up the guy that Phil met at the bar. He tells them who it is. They go to him and they say, "Hey, did you sell Phil some fissile material ore?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I got some ore here. I got like 84 pounds. You can have it if you want it." Let's see what we got here. Phil, who has been committed to a mental institution, diagnosed as being schizophrenic. He has raw uranium ore for what purpose? I don't know. He had told the friend that he was going to build a nuclear device. He has been storing this radioactive ore underneath his bed where he sleeps. They said that when they took a Geiger counter to his parking place in the parking lot, it was 4 times normal background radiation where he parked his car. What I'm saying is that Phil was fucking irradiating himself. The cancer that he has that came from the psionic weapon, I'm saying no. I'm saying that Phil gave himself cancer. He gave himself radiation poisoning and cancer. That's why he was in the hospital. The scar on his chest is going to be, I believe, the lung that they took out that he cooked by sleeping on top of radioactive material. Yeah, they show a nice scar, and it certainly does look like an old-time bypass scar. I mean, even now, they're pretty nasty zipper scars when you get a bypass. I don't believe Phil was hit with psionic weapon. I think Phil fucked himself up by sleeping on top fissile material. Now, one of the claims that Phil makes in his video, he had been shot there's a record that he had been shot. Someone had shot him up. He said that he was actually shot 3 times and that one shot went through the shoulder roughly here and that the other 2 shots had hit him in the midsection. He's trying to claim that this is a CIA kill method that, you aim for the upper midsection and
double
1
tap.
in each lung. He tries to claim that those other 2 bullets didn't do any damage because he has a plastic insert in his rib cage. Now, they're doing some pretty fantastic things with medicine these days. We can get bone grafts, move around a tendon, just pretty much give you a rod or a pin or a screw or a plate, probably implant a candy cane if they needed to. But I don't think that they were putting in plastic rib cage inserts in the 70s. If they have, I'm way, way behind on medical technology. Phil's claims are really fantastic. First, I've not heard of any plastic from the 70s that stops bullets or that you make rib cages out of. These claims are just wild. What makes this worse is that we now have a guy who lies about his qualifications because there's no documentation of him being a geologist or an explosives expert. He covers up the fact that he's been diagnosed as schizophrenic, lies about how long he worked for this contractor, claims that there is this ludicrous amount of conspiracy occurring, claims that he was involved in the accidental, death of a van full of Air Force personnel that's somehow mysteriously never reported. He has a magic plastic rib cage that deflects bullets. The story just goes on and on and on. And really, in researching all of this, I'm just kind of with my jaw on the floor. Wait a minute. His dad's a fucking U-boat captain that was involved in the Philadelphia experiment and has photos of alien ships escaping nuclear tests and has a piece of the downed Roswell ship. And then we have all this stuff with Phil. What I'm getting there is the apple don't fall far from the tree, baby.
I feel like you don't believe Phil.
I'm having a hard time believing Phil at the moment, Dan.
Here's the thing, all right? Schizophrenia is a hell of a disease, and we don't even fully understand it. Still to this day, we still don't understand how schizophrenia really works. I've studied it myself because it is a fascinating disease, and it was never proven that Phil had schizophrenia. He had schizophrenic tendencies. Now, whoever controls the flow of information controls the narrative.
I get that, but I don't think that the doctors at the mental institute that's been closed for, I think, 15 years now are attempting to control the narrative.
Well,
I don't think that the reports from 1968 and 1969 stating that he was diagnosed with schizophrenic tendencies and that he self-harmed and self-amputated his fingers and his thumb were meant to control the narrative from something that occurred better than 10 years later.
Well, have those documents been around that whole time? Or they just pop up a couple years ago?
That's a good question. The veracity of the documents. I don't have a personal timeline on the documents. I would like to believe that this is the medical community not going to be involved in a government cover-up. The government has done some spooky stuff. I mean, do you remember the Gong Show?
I do.
Okay, the Gong Show, the guy who hosted the Gong Show, turns out he was a CIA wet work. The dating game, the newlywed game, the Gong Show. Yeah, he was a CIA wet work.
The newlywed game is what I was thinking.
He actually came up with the idea from that, is what I got from that. He killed 14 or 17 people for the CIA. At the end of his life, went full Howard Hughes and rented the top floor of a hotel and lived in there like piston jars and burned his fingernail clippings in his hair so that nobody can ever get a hold of it. Yeah, well, just the piston and jars part.
You don't fucking know me. You don't know what I do these days, Paul. Do I need to show you the jars?
So what I'm saying,
and do I need to show you the clippings? I can.
Now, for anybody who wants to look this up, there is a fantastic film on this. It's called Confessions of a Dangerous
really
Mind. I fully recommend you watch it. Christopher Moltisanti is fantastic in it. It is well done, and George Clooney is fully funny in it. I recommend this movie. Really, it's worth your time. Has the government done shit that they've covered up that, would make our heads spin? Oh, I believe so. Did they cover up Phil? Did this insane cover up with Dulce Base have tentacles tentacles that reached far enough to go back 10 years to Phil post-college when he's been sent to the mental institution. If they were going to cover it up and this mental illness as the purported reason behind Phil's story, which I guess would be the reason for the cover up, why not just continue with it? Why not just, okay, he escaped from the mental institution and he was living under an assumed name and working there. If we're going to control the narrative, wouldn't we do a little better job than just, the reports from when he was in the psychiatric institution and then the FBI reports of the fissile material? If they've done this massive cover up that's literally nationwide to prevent any of this getting out, if they've controlled the narrative this well, be kind of sloppy to just leave that huge loose end there when you could have neatly cut that tentacle off. It's just hard to believe.
It's a tough one to believe. The biggest thing for me is how he died. That's the one that makes me scratch my head and go, okay, maybe there's a little something to it. But if it is true that he was radiating himself and he was sitting on all this radiated material, this could be part of his sick, twisted schizophrenia. Could be he had to see it through to the end and he killed himself to basically punctuate his story.
And if it was just to finish off the established narrative so that he left behind a great story and a terrific looking corpse, okay, yeah, I can buy that. I have an opposing theory. I had told you that I had a theory on this. I have not revealed what it is. I have no evidence for this, but I think that judging by what we have, I think my theory holds water. I think that Phil did many things that were really questionable. He'd give those lectures and he would pull out pieces that were supposedly new elements and alien metals. He's letting people pass this shit around. This came from space. We don't know what the hell is going on with this thing. Scientists haven't tested this because Phil has it. So go ahead and pass this around. Heaven knows what this is going to do to any of you for having handled it, but you're probably going to be fine because Phil has survived it and it hasn't melted his magic plastic ribcage. I do have another theory on how Phil died. I think that Phil had a protege, a helper, an aide de camp, if you will, a girl Friday, if you'd like to call it that. I think he probably had someone that he had been feeding this narrative for a long time. And the person believed in him and supported him and wanted him to be right. Probably they were singing the Phil Schneider story to everyone they ever met, and they were a genuine believer. I don't know who this person is. This is a fictional person. This is a person I'm creating. So believe me, when I state this, I have no evidence of anything I'm saying. This is, again, just supposition. I think that at the end of his life, when Phil realized that it was over, that there would have been a severing of the ways with that person, Phil's confession would have been, look, it was all bullshit. I wanted to be famous. I wanted to be important. I didn't do any of that shit. It's all fake. Yeah, I had a job with a construction company, and yeah, I had some nuclear material, and yeah, I was in fact put into a mental institution, but all the rest of it is bullshit. And I think the person fucking flipped out and killed him. You fucking lying piece of shit. You've been leading me on for years, thinking I was going to get the piece of the alien spacecraft. Now you're telling me there's nothing there. Die, you son of a bitch. That's my theory.
As far as theories goes, it's certainly a theory.
I don't know how much water it holds, but that's where I'm at.
Well, or he could have had someone kill him. He could be like, listen, I can't do it myself. Please finish me off. I know I'm dying. This shit sucks. Just end my pain, end my suffering.
And I will give you a piece of an alien spaceship that you can never show to anybody for doing this.
I don't know, but it's a hell of a way to go. And I just can't believe it was listed as a suicide.
I think probably what they said was, Phil Schneider's gone, and we can finally put a Band-Aid over that wound and let it heal up. Just fuck him. That's suicide. Bury him deep. Let's forget about him. The government, I'm sure, was watching this guy. Was the government trying to kill him? I don't know. What gets me is the assassination attempts. There was a lot of assassination attempts, and that's not to say that it was the government or any agency attempting to assassinate him. Maybe somebody was pissed off that he wasn't able to build the nuclear device he was going to, and just, spent 10 years trying to kill the fucking guy and finally succeeded.
All right, let's move on for time. I'm going to move on to the Green Kids, as I promised that I would.